Okay, let me start off by apologizing. My allergies are going crazy today, but this is the day I plan to do this, so let's do it. Let's do an overdrive shootout. I've got 5 overdrives here. You know, it was never an intentional thing. Somehow I kind of just ended up with 5 of everything. I originally held off because I thought this pedal right here, the Mustang GT from Lauren Audio, I thought that would end up being an overdrive, but I'm actually using it as, what am I using it for? I'm using it as an EQ boost sound enhancer. I don't know, like I might have used my BBE Sonic Maximizer in the past. It's just kind of a line conditioner for me. So let's look at what we've got today for overdrives. We've got one that I've been a big fan of for a long time, the Timmy/Tim. This is obviously a Tim version 3. We've got what I've called my favorite overdrive of all time, although this is kind of an amp in the box thing. This is the Lovepedal JTM. This thing's incredible. The Achilles heel on this particular pedal is you have no means of controlling the output level. So if you want to get gain out of it, you're going to have to compensate on output level somewhere downstream. This is a new one. This one is obviously the Strymon Sunset. The right side, I love the JFET setting. The left side, I don't know if I have a particular preference. There's a bunch of different settings, but the big thing that attracts me about this particular overdrive is that you can run both of them in parallel rather than in series. So that's what kind of sets this one apart. We then have the Nobels ODR1. I am not, even though I own a bunch of cork sniffing pedals, I still try, at least I believe I use my ears. And this one was just, I had heard enough about them and seen enough about them and never had used one myself. Most of what I do on this channel is in an effort for me to learn for myself what sounds good, what works in my setting. So I bought this, and it does kind of live up to its hype. Cheap, easy to get, sounds amazing. And then last, but very, very much not least, is the Brothers AM. This has been a love pedal for me because it's Chase Bliss and Analog Man. Man, it's got high expectations, don't you think? And it's great. I don't think it sounds like a King of Tone. I used to own a King of Tone. I got my King of Tone in 2017. I sold it a few years later. I should have sat on it because it's worth more now than it was when I sold it. But at the time, I wanted a new amp, and the price that I was able to sell my King of Tone for got me a new amp. Now, my justification for selling my King of Tone was that the one I ordered was high gain both sides. I kind of wanted just the regular, the original. So the Brothers, hopefully, because this is really the most feel-good, coolest pedal I own. But man, it's hard for it to live up to the expectations. So what I'm going to do here is, obviously, again, we're going to shoot all this stuff out. I'm going to pause this, and we're going to set up the first pedal, whatever that pedal may be, and then we'll see what sounds best in my setting. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Let's start off with the JTM. This is, again, obviously meant to emulate a JTM. So I'm going to pause this. Let's make some noise. Or excuse me, I'm going to mute this. Let's make some noise. Now, by the way, I should also note that the knob controls the bias, so you're going to hear that noise when you turn the knob. All right, so right off the bat, I'm going to say this JTM is more in the category of the Mustang. It's more of a line conditioner rather than an overdrive to me. So I would not use this as an overdrive, so let's move on. Okay, Tim, obviously a very well-known pedal. The Tim is unique in that it has an effects loop in it. The effects loop is part of the boost. Today, though, we're just going to be looking at the overdrive side. So let's make some noise. It would help if I looked at the pedal and noticed the volume was all the way down. I think I'll always be a fan of the Tim or the Timmy for the type of sound I like. I think it just really sounds great. And that's not even exploring the boost. But in any case, let's move on to the next one. Okay, ODR1. This is one that I'm kind of quietly wondering whether it's going to win. So let's make some noise and see what happens. All right, the little switch inside rolls off the bottom end. Let's see if that does anything. All right, so I would say this doesn't strike me as being much different than the Tim, even though I've seen very well-known players talk about how the Tim sounds different. Personally, I think the Tim might sound a little better. I don't know about a lot better. They're very similar to me. So let's pause this and move on to the next one. All right, so here we go. The last two overdrives are going to be obviously dual overdrives, the Brothers AM, as you see right here, and then the Strymon Sunset. I'll start off by saying I'm not really into the dual overdrive. I'd rather have a fuzz and an overdrive independently. You know, I could obviously make room for all of the above, but I like my push sound I'm getting out of this, and you know, usually I have something that'll give me a little bit of a push sound, and I like just a little more sustain out of whatever overdrive I use, and maybe use that more for rhythm, and then my fuzz is usually for the gain or for the lead setting. Now, whether it be fuzz wise, whether it be the Morgan NKT 275 or my Analog Man Sunface NKT Red Dot, I've got my lead tones. So this is really more for my, you know, everything else in between. So let's see what we get here. All right, so for the left side, I'm going to go with the boost setting, rolling off the tone a little bit, rolling off the output quite a bit, and just max gain. I think that has the least compression. It's the most open sounding, which is what I personally like. Let's see if we can blend in the right side. So I would say just my initial impression here, where everything is good. It just seems as if the more gain you add, the less low end you get. So it becomes more mid pushed. Um, Having said that, that's not really what I'm looking for in this. It's taking away what I think some of the other effects are adding. So let's move on. Okay, last but not least, we have the Strymon Sunset. The only reason I bought this is because I wanted to be as loyal to Strymon as possible. They're the only, I don't know, for lack of a better way of putting it, they're the only big company that subscribed to my channel. Now, my channel barely registers as a vlog. I'm only putting my stuff out there just as an example of how I'm using some of this stuff in context. However, whatever I'm doing caught Strymon's attention. Somebody there was interested. So I really want to be loyal to them. And I have to admit, I feel the same way about the Nile is for whatever reason, I hit their radar and they, whether they subscribed or not, Vertex commented on my video when I got it. And Strymon actually subscribed to my channel. So, who knows? Some of my preferences, some of my opinions may influence future products, right? which would be ideal for my situation. So it's cool to consider that might be a factor. So let's mute the microphone here and see what kind of sounds we get out of the Sunset. Now this is going to be set up alternately from the Brothers AM. This is going to be set up in parallel instead of in serial. So you're going to hear a dual overdrive here, except it's going to be both running in parallel, which I actually prefer. If I'm going to run a dual overdrive, this is one of the main reasons I got the Sunset instead of their Riverside. Again, I've got other things that I can use as a kind of a preamp, but when it comes to a dual overdrive, I'd prefer to run it in parallel. So let's see what we get. Now, before I move on to the left side, I like all three settings on that. None of them stand out to me, except for maybe the JFET setting, which is what we're on right now. It's a nice incremental step in gain. So let's get in the left side here. Okay, so the left side, I think I prefer the treble boost. The Texas setting or the germanium setting isn't really the kind of breakup I'm going for in an overdrive. I've got two sides where I'm just pushing kind of clean things. The nice thing about that treble boost setting is it doesn't add all kinds of crazy noise. I did not explore the treble boost in the Brothers AM only because in this setting it adds more noise than it does tone, if you ask me. So let me pause this, consider my options, and let's do some rankings. All right, so surprise bonus, and the winner is Fill My Fuzz. Nothing that I just shot out wins, if you ask me. So first place is this. So yep, so none of them got first place. Fuzz still wins, I think, in this particular setting. And man, I hope I don't talk myself into going into an overdrive search. I've been through a lot of them at this point. The Missing Link Audio Peacock is one I've had a couple versions of. That was always very good to me. Yes, I've had a bunch of Klon clones. I've never played a real Klon. I'd say the best Klon clone I've ever played was the Warm Audio one. I thought that one sounded the best. Did it sound like a Klon? I don't know. The Ryra, that one has that interesting top end 3D thing going on that I think is the Klon thing. That one I found very interesting in that regard. But of all the other overdrives I've had, just coming to mind immediately, nothing else stands out, to be honest. The Red Dirt from Keeley, I had one of those a long time ago. I thought that one sounded real well, which is interesting to me because I generally do not like what's the green one called? Why am I blanking on like the most popular pedal ever? The 909 or the... Wow, I can't believe I'm blanking on it. You know what I'm talking about, though. In any case, let's rank what we got here. I think for these 5 pedals, let's go with the last rank. Let's go with lowest to highest instead of highest to lowest. So since none of them took first place, so we're only ranking 4. So the JTM isn't even going to rank. Why? Because I would put it in the category of the Mustang here, even though it's incredible. I think the big Achilles heel on this thing is that it doesn't have an output control. So the higher you turn it up, the more output you have. So you can't turn it on and off. It's kind of has to be an always on pedal, which if you have a pot on your guitar that you can roll off is perfect. This is still kind of my favorite amp in a box ever. This thing is dramatically underrated. I actually own 3 of these. I never want to be without one of these. That's how important this is. And the only reason I say that is you never see it on my channel because I don't have a direct application for it. If I were to ever start playing live in a room again, you would see this thing probably all the time. But in my little recording setup here, it just doesn't have a room because of the output levels. Okay. All right, so fourth place, I would say, is probably the Brothers AM. Oh, this is just one of those pedals where I want to have it on there just because of what it is. But it's just not voiced for me. It's just not voiced for me. This is another one where if I was playing a live amp in a room, I am playing a live amp, by the way, you're hearing my Bass Breaker 45 at full wattage through the torpedo captor. The only thing I'm doing out of the torpedo captor is I'm inverting the phase on it. Why, I don't know. It sounds better. Into the Nano Cortex, running just an IR. So, but the fidelity is there. The voicing isn't. I have this issue with a lot of Chase Bliss pedals. Whomever is voicing these pedals doesn't have the same ear as me. And which is ultimately why I don't own any other Chase Bliss pedals right now. And I've owned a lot of them. If you look back on my channel, I've owned almost every single Chase Bliss pedal. I love what they make, but they're voiced. They just don't work for me in my setting. So fourth place for the Brothers AM, tied with the JTM, or JTM technically didn't rank, but you know what I'm saying. Okay. Next. I gotta say, like, the next three, again, if we're just talking overdrive, I'd say third place would have to be the Sunset. Now, the reason why I'd probably rank in third place is because my favorite setting on this is the JFET, but my second and third favorite settings are the hard clipping and the two-stage, which I can't use along with the JFET, which is irritating as hell. The germanium and the Texas on the left side are good, but not great, and I wouldn't typically use them. The treble boost is cool, but what I'm getting out of the JFET is about the same as the treble boost. So running these in parallel, and yes, I could probably experiment and find a way to stack something and make it happen. It just doesn't rank for me in that regard. But I love the JFET setting on this. That's my favorite setting on this, which kind of puts it in the territory as the Mustang GT, and the Mustang GT is still giving me that holy shit thing. Only because I think somehow I just found like the perfect, the holy trinity for me is the Nile into the OB1 into the Mustang GT, into the Bass Breaker 45, into the Nano Cortex running a 410, or excuse me, an 810 cabinet. Take that for what it is, but that's my holy grail somehow. But having said that, that puts the Sunset third, which leaves the ODR1 and the Tim. I'm gonna give second place to the ODR1. If you're going only on value, like this would be number one all day long. But if I'm going just on what my ears are telling me, that makes the Tim number one. The ODR1 is with the bass roll off or without it. I don't see why anybody wouldn't have one of these for the price you can get them for. You don't need some cork sniffy rare version. This is just I'd have to look. I don't think I paid more than $50 for this. I just wanted to hear for myself in my setting what this thing sounded like, and it does deliver. It really does deliver. I don't see why for an overdrive, like, it's exactly as the name implies. It's a natural overdrive. So really close second. But the winner for me, when it comes to overdrive, is the Tim, which is second place, because I don't think any of these things are necessary for me in this setting, because I think the fuzz, whether it be the Morgan here or my red dot, my NKT red dot, are going to be going to give me everything I need between overdrive and fuzz. Again, I can just, so the guitar I'm playing right now is my Eastwood, I don't know what the hell this thing's called, Warren Ellis Cootercaster, and the pot has 0 taper on it. It's kind of on or off. If I'm in a moment where I really want to try and do something, I might get lucky and find an in-between spot, but the pot on this is no good when it comes to rolling stuff off. However, I have a bunch of guitars, kind of one of every flavor. Right now I have one of every flavor guitar except for a Telecaster. And oddly enough, I've owned more Telecasters in my life than any guitar, and I'm so picky on them now. I don't own one because every time I pick one up, it's not the right one. So one of these days, I hope I find the right Telecaster. But when it comes to rolling off, I have a couple other guitars here that do a much better job, in which case the Morgan is absolutely fine, or one of my other fuzzes. All the fuzzes were winners. All the overdrives were losers. If you ask me, again, fuzz does more of what I want than any overdrive will. I think overdrives are heavily, heavily overrated. In the 90s and the 80s, I always thought of overdrive pedals as toys for kids that just learned to play guitar. I still kind of feel that way, but I know that from experience now. I've bought enough of them and played through enough of them, excuse me, to feel as if I can back up that opinion with my own personal experience in my setting. So having said that, none of them were bad. They all sounded great. I don't think you would be disappointed with any of the fuzzes that I've shot out or any of these overdrives that I've shot out. There are actually a bunch of distortion pedals I like too. However, I just don't use distortion in these settings. That's a different lifetime for me. So there you go. There's my overdrive shootout. I wanted to do one today. I kind of knew it would end up like this, and it did end up like this. I was kind of hoping the Brothers AM would win just because it's such a cool pedal. I was kind of hoping the Sunset would win because I could run in parallel. I was kind of hoping the ODR would win because then I could sell off all my expensive pedals and keep a cheap one. And I was kind of hoping the Tim would win just because I just love the Tim. It's a great sounding pedal, or the Timmy for that matter. And then the JTM, again, I went into this knowing it wouldn't win. But in a Strat setting, into an amp, you can't beat it in a live setting, and I'm just not doing that now. So no surprises for me. Don't know if there's any surprises for you, but that's my current selection of overdrives. And there you go.